In the quiet town of Aldergrove, a rumor whispered through the wind about an old mansion hidden deep in the forest, known only as Beauty in the Dark. It was said to be cursed, a place where beauty was twisted into something terrifying. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, its windows, like hollow eyes staring into the void. Despite the warnings, a group of friends, Sarah, Jake, Lily, and Mark, decided to explore the mansion one eerie night. "It's just an old house," Sarah said, trying to hide her nervousness as they trekked through the dense forest. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the gnarled trees that seemed to reach out for them. "I bet we'll find nothing but dust and cobwebs," Jake joked, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. As they approached the mansion, the wind seemed to whisper warnings, urging them to turn back. The door stood slightly ajar, as if it had been expecting them. "Creepy much," Lily muttered, clutching Jake's arm as they stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under their feet, and a cold draft sent shivers down their spines. The hallway was lined with old portraits, the eyes of the subjects seeming to follow them as they walked. "Is it just me, or are these paintings staring at us?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're just paintings," Sarah replied, but even she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous bang, causing them all to jump. "Not funny," Jake said, though his bravado was fading fast. "It wasn't me," Mark replied, his eyes wide with fear. The mansion seemed to come alive around them, the walls creaking and groaning as if they were breathing. "Let's just get this over with," Sarah said, leading the way deeper into the house. They entered a grand hall, dominated by a large cracked mirror that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. "Check this out," Jake said, moving closer to the mirror. His reflection in the mirror looked odd, slightly distorted, like a funhouse mirror gone wrong. "Is it just me, or does this mirror make us look weird?" Lily asked, stepping up beside him. "It's just the cracks," Sarah said, though the unease in her voice was clear. Suddenly, the mirror shimmered, and an eerie figure appeared behind them in the reflection. They all spun around, but there was nothing there. "Did you guys see that?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. "See what?" Sarah asked, though her heart was pounding in her chest. The figure in the mirror grew clearer, a woman with long dark hair and eyes that gleamed with malevolence. "We need to leave," Lily said, backing away from the mirror. But the door to the hall slammed shut, trapping them inside. "Who's doing this?" Jake shouted, panic creeping into his voice. The woman in the mirror smiled, her face twisted with a beauty that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. "Welcome to my home," she said, her voice echoing through the hall though her lips didn't move. The friends stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. The woman stepped out of the mirror, her body passing through the glass as if it were water. "I've been waiting for you," she said, her voice soft but filled with an underlying menace. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, trying to muster up courage. "I am the Beauty in the Dark," the woman replied, her smile widening to reveal sharp teeth. The friends backed away, their fear growing with each step. "What do you want from us?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. The woman's eyes glowed with an unnatural light as she moved closer. "To show you what true beauty is," she said, her tone sinister. Without warning, the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. The friends could hear the woman's laughter echoing around them, chilling them to the bone. "We need to find a way out of here," Mark said, his voice shaky. They stumbled through the darkness, their hands reaching out blindly for an escape. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing the woman standing right in front of them. "Leaving so soon?" she asked, her smile widening. She raised a hand and the room began to warp, the walls bending and twisting like a living nightmare. "What's happening?" Lily screamed, clutching Jake's arm. The woman's face began to change, her features twisting and contorting into something monstrous. "Run!" Sarah shouted, but the floor beneath them buckled, sending them tumbling to the ground. The woman's laughter grew louder, filling the air with a sense of doom. They scrambled to their feet, trying to make sense of the twisted reality around them. The hallway now seemed endless, stretching into darkness with no end in sight. "We have to stick together," Jake said, grabbing Sarah's hand. But as they ran, the hallway twisted and turned, leading them in circles. The woman's voice echoed all around them, taunting them with every step. "You can't escape me," she sang, her voice hauntingly sweet. Suddenly, doors appeared on either side of the hallway, each one leading to a different nightmare. "Which one do we choose?" Mark asked, panic in his eyes. "We don't have time to choose," Sarah said, pulling them toward the nearest door. They burst through the door, finding themselves in a room filled with mirrors, each reflecting a different version of themselves. "This is a nightmare," Lily whispered, her voice filled with dread. The reflections began to move on their own, their faces warping into grotesque versions of themselves. "We need to keep moving," Jake said, but the door they had just entered was now gone. The mirrors surrounded them, trapping them in the room. "What does she want from us?" Mark asked, his voice cracking with fear. The woman appeared in the mirrors, her twisted smile haunting them from every angle. "You belong to me now," she whispered, her voice sending shivers down their spines. "We can't let her control us," Sarah said, trying to keep calm. But the room began to spin, the mirrors closing in on them. "We're trapped," Lily cried, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, the mirrors shattered, and the room plunged into darkness once again. The friends felt a cold hand grasping at them, pulling them deeper into the darkness. "We have to fight back," Jake said, but his voice was filled with despair. The woman's laughter echoed in their ears as they struggled against the invisible force. "You can't escape the beauty in the dark," she whispered, her voice now right beside them. The darkness grew thicker, suffocating them as they were pulled further into the twisted reality. "This isn't real," Sarah whispered to herself, trying to hold onto her sanity. But the woman's voice was everywhere, drowning out her thoughts. "It's as real as you make it," the woman said, her voice cold and unforgiving. The friends could feel their minds slipping, the terror overwhelming them. "We have to find each other," Jake said, reaching out in the darkness. But his hands met nothing but air, the others seemingly lost in the void. "Where are you?" Sarah's voice echoed, but it sounded distant, as if she was miles away. "I'm here," Jake called out, but his voice was swallowed by the darkness. The woman's laughter grew louder, a cacophony of horror that filled the air. "You're all alone now," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. The friends felt the cold creeping into their bones, the darkness seeping into their souls. "We can't give up," Jake said, but his voice was weak, defeated. The woman appeared before him, her eyes glowing with a twisted light. "Welcome to your new reality," she said, her smile cruel. The darkness swallowed them whole, leaving only the echo of their screams behind. The mansion stood silent and still, its walls hiding the horrors within. The friends were never seen again, their fates sealed by the beauty in the dark. But the mansion remained, waiting patiently for its next visitors. And in the town of Eldergrove, the whispers continued, warning those who would listen. But some curiosities are too strong, and the beauty in the dark continues to claim its victims. Days turned into weeks, and the town of Eldergrove was still reeling from the disappearance of Sarah, Jake, Lily, and Mark. Their families searched tirelessly, but the forest seemed to swallow every clue, leaving nothing behind. The mansion remained a dark secret, its presence a blight on the edge of the town. Despite the tragedy, the allure of the mansion continued to draw in the curious and the foolhardy. One of those drawn to the mystery was Ethan, a thrill-seeker with a penchant for the supernatural. Ethan had heard the stories, but he was convinced that it was all just folklore, exaggerated by time and fear. "It's just an old house," he said to his girlfriend, Mia, as they stood at the edge of the forest. Mia wasn't as confident as Ethan, but she didn't want to seem scared, so she agreed to go with him. "This is a bad idea," Mia whispered as they ventured into the forest, the path growing darker with each step. "Don't worry, babe," Ethan said, flashing her a grin. "I'll protect you." The trees loomed overhead, their branches twisted like gnarled fingers reaching for the sky. As they approached the mansion, the air grew colder and the forest fell eerily silent. "I don't like this," Mia said, her voice trembling. "It's just your imagination," Ethan replied, though he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The mansion stood before them, its windows dark and lifeless, like the eyes of a corpse. "Ready?" Ethan asked, squeezing Mia's hand. Mia nodded, though her heart was pounding in her chest. They pushed open the heavy door, which groaned in protest as it swung inward. The interior was just as they had imagined, dusty, dark and filled with the musty smell of decay. "See, nothing to worry about," Ethan said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. They stepped into the grand hallway, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. The portraits on the walls were faded, their subjects obscured by dust and time. "These paintings give me the creeps," Mia said, clutching Ethan's arm. "They're just old," Ethan replied, but even he felt a chill as they passed by. As they moved deeper into the mansion, the air grew colder and a sense of unease settled over them. "Do you feel that?" Mia asked, rubbing her arms as a shiver ran down her spine. "Yeah, it's like the temperature just dropped," Ethan said, glancing around nervously. They entered the grand hall, where the large cracked mirror stood, its surface gleaming dully in the dim light. "That mirror looks weird," Mia said, frowning as she approached it. "Probably just old," Ethan replied, though the mirror's surface seemed to ripple like water. As Mia stood before the mirror, she noticed her reflection looked off. "Ethan, something's wrong with this mirror," Mia said, stepping back. Ethan joined her, and together they watched as their reflections began to distort, their faces twisting into grotesque shapes. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered, reaching out to touch the glass. As his fingers brushed the surface, the mirror shimmered, and a cold, icy hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Ethan!" Mia screamed, pulling him back with all her strength. The hand released him, and the mirror's surface returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. "What was that?" Mia asked, her voice shaking. I don't know," Ethan stammered, rubbing his wrist where the icy hand had gripped him. The sense of dread grew stronger, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. "We need to leave," Mia said, her voice firm with fear. "Yeah, let's get out of here," Ethan agreed, turning back toward the hallway. But the door they had entered through was gone, replaced by a solid wall. No, Ethan muttered, panic rising in his chest. "We're trapped," Mia whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, the room began to warp, the walls bending and twisting as if the mansion itself were alive. "What's happening?" Ethan shouted, grabbing Mia's hand as the floor beneath them shifted. The room seemed to stretch, the walls pulling away from them, leaving them in a dark, endless space. "This isn't real," Mia said, her voice trembling. "It feels real to me," Ethan replied, his heart pounding in his chest. The darkness around them seemed to pulse, like a living entity watching them from the shadows. "We have to find a way out," Mia said, trying to stay calm. They stumbled through the darkness, their hands reaching out for something, anything to guide them. Suddenly, a faint light appeared in the distance, flickering like a candle in the wind. "Look, over there," Ethan said, pulling Mia toward the light. As they got closer, they realized the light was coming from a single candle, burning brightly on a small table. "This feels like a trap," Mia whispered, her instinct screaming at her to turn back. "What choice do we have?" Ethan replied, reaching out to grab the candle. The moment his fingers touched the flame, the room was flooded with blinding light. They shielded their eyes, and when they opened them, they were no longer in the grand hall. Instead, they found themselves in a small, cozy room filled with soft furniture and warm light. "Where are we?" Mia asked, her voice filled with confusion. "I have no idea," Ethan replied, looking around the room in disbelief. The room felt welcoming, comforting even, as if it were a safe haven from the horrors they had just experienced. "Maybe we're safe here," Mia said, sinking into a plush armchair. "It seems too good to be true," Ethan said, still wary. Suddenly, the door to the room creaked open, and an elderly woman stepped inside. "Ah, you've made it," she said, her voice kind and gentle. "Who are you?" Mia asked, standing up from the chair. "I'm the caretaker of this place," the woman replied, smiling warmly. "We're trapped here," Ethan said, his voice edged with desperation. "You're not trapped," the woman said, shaking her head. "Then how do we get out?" Mia asked, hope flickering in her chest. "You'll have to find the key," the woman said, her smile never wavering. "What key?" Ethan asked, his patience wearing thin. "The key to your freedom," the woman replied cryptically. "Where is it?" Mia asked, trying to keep calm. "That's for you to discover," the woman said, turning to leave the room. "Wait," Ethan called out, but the woman disappeared through the door, leaving them alone. "This is insane," Ethan muttered, pacing the room. "We have to play along," Mia said, though fear gnawed at her insides. "What if this is another trick?" Ethan asked, his mind racing. "We don't have a choice," Mia replied, her voice firm. They searched the room, looking for any sign of the key the woman had mentioned. But the room was small and simple, with nothing out of the ordinary. "There's nothing here," Ethan said, frustration creeping into his voice. "Maybe the key isn't a physical object," Mia suggested, thinking aloud. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, pausing to look at her. "What if the key is something we have to figure out, like a riddle?" Mia said, her mind racing. "That doesn't make sense," Ethan replied, shaking his head. "None of this makes sense," Mia shot back, her voice rising. They sat in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. "Maybe we're supposed to find our way out together," Ethan said quietly. "Together?" Mia asked, looking at him. "Yeah, maybe the key is trust," Ethan said, though he sounded uncertain. "Trust," Mia repeated, the word hanging in the air. They stood up together, facing the door the woman had left through. "Let's do this," Mia said, her voice filled with determination. Together, Ethan agreed, and they stepped through the door into the unknown. The light behind them faded, and they were plunged back into the darkness. Ethan and Mia found themselves in a narrow corridor, lit by flickering torches mounted on the walls. The corridor seemed endless, stretching out in both directions, its stone walls cold and damp. "We need to choose a direction," Ethan said, glancing at Mia. "I'm not sure," Mia replied, her voice echoing in the narrow space. They decided to head left, hoping it would lead them somewhere significant. As they walked, the corridor seemed to shift and twist, making it difficult to tell if they were moving forward or simply circling in place. "I hate this," Mia said, her voice tinged with frustration. "Just stay close," Ethan said, trying to keep his own fears in check. They came to a large wooden door, intricately carved with strange symbols and patterns. "This looks promising," Ethan said, pushing open the door with some effort. Beyond the door was a grand chamber, its high ceilings adorned with glittering chandeliers. The room was filled with old furniture, covered in dust, and a large fireplace crackled warmly on one side. "This place is beautiful," Mia said, taking in the opulence. "It's too good to be true," Ethan said, his eyes darting around warily. They moved cautiously into the room, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. On a pedestal in the center of the room was a large, ornate box. "What's in the box?" Mia asked, her curiosity piqued. "Only one way to find out," Ethan said, reaching for the box. As he touched the box, the room seemed to shimmer, and the fireplace went out, plunging them into darkness. "What's happening?" Mia asked, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know," Ethan said, fumbling for the light switch. The darkness was absolute, pressing in on them from all sides. Suddenly, the box began to glow with a soft, eerie light. "Look at that," Mia said, pointing to the box. The light from the box revealed strange symbols glowing on its surface. "We need to open it," Ethan said, though his voice was tinged with uncertainty. He lifted the lid of the box, and a rush of cold air poured out, making them shiver. Inside the box was a beautiful, antique mirror, its frame intricately decorated with gems and gold. "It's another mirror," Mia said, frowning at the sight. "I don't know if this is a good idea," Ethan said, eyeing the mirror warily. "We don't have much choice," Mia said, her hand reaching for the mirror. As she touched it, the mirror's surface rippled, and a face appeared, its eyes filled with sorrow. "Who are you?" Mia asked, staring at the apparition. "I am the guardian of this realm," the face said, its voice echoing around them. "What do you want from us?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "You seek freedom, but to find it, you must face your deepest fears," the guardian said. "What fears?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The fears that bind you, the fears that keep you trapped," the guardian replied. The mirror's surface began to swirl, and the room shifted again, leaving them in a new, unfamiliar place. They were now in a forest at night, the trees towering above them like dark sentinels. "Where are we?" Mia asked, her breath visible in the cold night air. "I think we're in a different part of the mansion," Ethan said, looking around. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound being the rustling of leaves in the wind. "We need to keep moving," Mia said, shivering. They walked through the forest, their path illuminated by the occasional flicker of moonlight. Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise behind them, making them both freeze in place. "What was that?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Mia replied, her eyes scanning the darkness. Out of the shadows stepped a figure, a tall, cloaked figure with a hood obscuring its face. "Who's there?" Ethan called out, trying to sound brave. The figure stepped closer, revealing a pale, skeletal face. "Greetings," the figure said, its voice raspy and hollow. "What do you want from us?" Mia asked, her voice shaking. "I am the keeper of the fears you must face," the figure said, extending a bony hand. "What do we need to do?" Ethan asked, trying to control his fear. "You must confront your darkest fears," the figure said, its eyes glowing ominously. The figure's hand reached out, and suddenly, the forest around them began to distort and warp. The trees twisted and bent, and the ground beneath them seemed to shift. This is insane, Ethan said, stumbling as the forest changed around them. We have to stay focused, Mia said, grabbing Ethan's arm. The forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, the path ahead disappearing into the darkness. How do we confront our fears? Ethan asked, his voice filled with frustration. I don't know, Mia said, trying to think. As they walked, the forest began to change again, revealing scenes from their pasts. For Ethan, it was a dark, shadowy version of his childhood home. For Mia, it was a scene of her greatest failure, replaying over and over. This is horrible, Mia said, tears streaming down her face. We have to face it, Ethan said, trying to sound encouraging. They continued walking, each step taking them deeper into their fears. The forest shifted again, and they found themselves in a dimly lit room filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflected a different version of themselves, twisted and distorted. This is just a nightmare, Mia said, staring at her distorted reflection. We need to see past this, Ethan said, determined. As they moved through the room, their reflections began to speak, echoing their fears and insecurities. You're not good enough, one reflection sneered. You'll never escape, another taunted. Ignore them, Ethan said, his voice filled with resolve. We have to keep going, Mia said, trying to block out the voices. They reached the center of the room, where a large, ornate door stood, covered in the same symbols as the previous one. This must be the way out, Ethan said, his hand reaching for the door. As he touched the door, it swung open, revealing a blinding light. They stepped through the door, and the light enveloped them, making them shield their eyes. When the light faded, they found themselves back in the grand chamber with the fireplace. We're back, Mia said, looking around in relief. The mirror on the pedestal was gone, replaced by an old book. Ethan picked up the book, its cover intricately decorated with strange symbols. Maybe this is the key, Ethan said, opening the book. Inside were pages filled with cryptic text and symbols. This looks like a puzzle, Mia said, studying the pages. We need to solve it, Ethan said, flipping through the book. As they worked on the puzzle, the room began to shift again, the walls moving and changing. Hurry, Mia said, her voice filled with urgency. They solved the puzzle, and the book began to glow with a soft, warm light. The light grew brighter and the room began to stabilize. I think we're getting close, Ethan said, watching the light. The book's glow intensified, and the walls of the room seemed to solidify. Finally, the light faded and the room returned to its original state. The large wooden door they had first entered through was now visible. We did it, Mia said, breathing a sigh of relief. They approached the door, ready to continue their journey, knowing that more challenges lay ahead. Ethan and Mia stood before the large wooden door, their relief palpable after solving the puzzle. Let's get out of here, Mia said, her voice filled with renewed determination. Ethan nodded, pushing open the door to reveal a winding staircase descending into darkness. Another step deeper, Ethan said, looking down the staircase with apprehension. They carefully descended the stairs, each step echoing ominously in the confined space. At the bottom, they found themselves in a cavernous underground chamber, its walls glittering with embedded crystals. This place is beautiful, Mia said, marveling at the sparkling walls. It's too quiet, Ethan replied, his senses on high alert. The chamber was vast, filled with stalactites and stalagmites that created eerie formations. In the center of the room was a massive stone pedestal, upon which rested a glowing orb. What do you think that is? Mia asked, eyeing the orb warily. It looks like it's important, Ethan said, moving closer to the pedestal. As he reached out to touch the orb, the chamber's temperature dropped sharply. This can't be good, Mia said, shivering as the cold air enveloped them. The orb began to pulse with an intense, rhythmic light, and the ground beneath them started to tremble. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, grabbing Mia's hand as the chamber shook violently. The orb's light grew brighter, and a swirling vortex of energy appeared above it. "We need to get away from that thing," Mia said, pulling Ethan toward the edges of the chamber. They moved as fast as they could, but the swirling vortex seemed to draw them closer. "It's pulling us in," Ethan yelled, struggling to resist the force. The vortex grew stronger, and the chamber's walls began to close in, trapping them. "We need to find another way out," Mia said, her voice urgent. They searched desperately for an exit, but the chamber seemed to offer no escape. Just as the vortex was about to envelop them, Ethan noticed a small, hidden passage behind a curtain of crystals. "Over there," Ethan shouted, pointing to the passage. They raced toward it, dodging falling debris as the chamber continued to collapse. The passage was narrow and dark, but it provided a way out of the chaos. They squeezed through the passage, their bodies brushing against the rough stone walls. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a dimly lit corridor, breathing heavily. "That was too close," Mia said, wiping sweat from her forehead. The corridor was lined with ancient tapestries depicting scenes of battle and conquest. "We have to keep moving," Ethan said, looking around for any signs of danger. They followed the corridor, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. The corridor twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine depths. Eventually, they reached a large door at the end of the corridor, adorned with intricate carvings. "I have a feeling this is it," Ethan said, placing his hand on the door. The door creaked open, revealing a grand hall filled with ancient relics and dusty artifacts. In the center of the hall stood a large, ornate throne. "This looks like a throne room," Mia said, glancing around. On the throne sat a figure cloaked in shadow, its face hidden by a dark hood. "Welcome," the figure said, its voice echoing through the hall. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, stepping forward. "I am the master of this mansion," the figure replied, its voice cold and commanding. "What do you want from us?" Mia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You seek freedom, but it comes with a price," the master said, rising from the throne. The master's cloak billowed around them, and the room seemed to darken. "What price?" Ethan asked, his heart racing. "You must face your deepest fears and prove your worth," the master said. "We've already faced so much," Mia said, her voice filled with desperation. "And there is more to come," the master said, gesturing to the relics around the room. Each relic seemed to pulse with a dark energy, their presence filling the hall with an ominous feeling. "We need to find a way to prove ourselves," Ethan said, looking around for any clues. The master pointed to a large, ancient book on a pedestal. "The Book of Fears," the master said, "it holds the key to your challenge." Ethan and Mia approached the book, its cover inscribed with strange symbols and warnings. As they opened the book, its pages began to turn on their own, revealing a series of challenges and trials. "We have to complete these challenges," Mia said, her voice filled with determination. "We don't have a choice," Ethan agreed, glancing at the first challenge. The first challenge required them to solve a complex puzzle involving ancient symbols. "This looks difficult," Mia said, studying the symbols closely. "We've faced worse," Ethan said, his fingers moving quickly over the symbols. They worked together, deciphering the puzzle and unlocking the next section of the book. The second challenge was a test of courage, requiring them to face their greatest fears in a simulated environment. "This is going to be tough," Ethan said, his face pale as he prepared for the test. They entered a dark, eerie room where their fears were projected in vivid, terrifying detail. For Mia, It was the fear of losing someone she loved. For Ethan, it was the fear of failure and inadequacy. They confronted their fears head-on, drawing strength from each other to overcome the trials. "We can do this," Mia said, her voice steady despite the terror she felt. Together, Ethan agreed, taking her hand. They faced their fears, pushing through the darkness and emerging victorious. The final challenge was a test of loyalty and trust, requiring them to make a difficult decision. "We need to choose wisely," Mia said, looking at the options presented in the book. The options were complex, each choice leading to a different outcome. "Let's think this through," Ethan said, analyzing the consequences of each choice. After careful consideration, they made their decision and completed the final challenge. The book closed with a loud snap, and the master's figure began to fade. "You have proven yourselves worthy," the master said, its voice fading away. The throne room began to shift, the dark shadows receding, and the room brightening. "We did it," Mia said, her voice filled with relief. "We're not out yet," Ethan said, looking around for any remaining threats. The room transformed into a grand hall with a door at the far end. "That must be the exit," Mia said, pointing to the door. They walked toward the door, their steps echoing in the now quiet hall. As they reached the door, it swung open, revealing a beautiful, sunlit garden. "We're free," Ethan said, stepping out into the garden. The garden was lush and vibrant, a stark contrast to the dark mansion they had left behind. "This is amazing," Mia said, her eyes wide with wonder. "We made it," Ethan said, taking a deep breath of the fresh air. They walked through the garden, feeling the warmth of the sun on their faces. The mansion's dark presence seemed to recede as they moved further away. "I can't believe we made it through," Mia said, her voice filled with awe. "Neither can I," Ethan agreed, looking back at the mansion. As they reached the edge of the garden, they saw a path leading back to Eldergrove. "Let's go home," Mia said, taking Ethan's hand. They followed the path, the garden's beauty fading behind them. As they emerged from the forest, the familiar sight of Eldergrove came into view. "We're back," Ethan said, looking around at the peaceful town. "It's good to be home," Mia said, her eyes filled with relief. And though the mansion's dark influence had faded, the memories of their trials would remain with them forever. Eldergrove seemed normal again, but Ethan and Mia felt an unsettling sense of déjà vu. "I can't shake the feeling that something is still wrong," Mia said, her eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. Ethan nodded, his own unease growing with every step they took through town. As they walked down the main street, they noticed that the townspeople were acting strangely, their faces blank and distant. "This is not right," Ethan said, his voice filled with concern. The townspeople seemed to ignore them, their eyes glazed over as they moved in unison. "We need to find out what's happening," Mia said, her determination renewed. They made their way to the town square, hoping to find someone who could explain the odd behavior. In the center of the square stood a large, ornate fountain, its water shimmering oddly in the sunlight. "This fountain looks different," Ethan said, noting the strange patterns in the water. As they approached the fountain, a figure emerged from the shadows, an old woman with a mysterious air about her. "Greetings," the old woman said, her voice carrying a hint of ancient wisdom. "Can you tell us what's going on in Eldergrove?" Mia asked, trying to get straight to the point. "The town has been cursed," the old woman replied, her eyes filled with sadness. "Cursed how?" Ethan asked, bewildered. "The curse was cast by the master of the mansion," the old woman explained. "But we defeated him," Mia said, her confusion growing. "The curse was not just a spell," but a contagion of despair, the old woman said, her tone grim. What do we do to break it? Ethan asked urgently. You must return to the mansion and find the source of the curse, the old woman instructed. But we thought we escaped, Mia said, her voice trembling. The mansion's influence is deeper than you realize, the old woman said, pointing to the fountain. The water in the fountain began to swirl, revealing a hidden passage beneath it. This will lead you back, the old woman said, her expression grave. Ethan and Mia exchanged worried glances, but knew they had no choice. They climbed into the passage, the water closing behind them with a soft splash. The passage was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of decay. I really hope this is the last time we have to do this, Ethan said, his voice echoing off the walls. The passage twisted and turned, leading them deeper underground. Eventually, they reached a heavy, rusted door, its surface covered in strange symbols. This must be it, Mia said, her heart pounding in her chest. Ethan pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with eerie artifacts. We're almost there, Mia said, her spirits lifting. As they approached the town, they noticed that the atmosphere was different, brighter, and more welcoming. It looks like the curse didn't reach this place, Ethan said, relieved. They entered the town and found it bustling with activity, its residents cheerful and lively. This is a welcome change, Mia said, smiling for the first time in what felt like ages. They stopped at a small inn to rest and gather their thoughts. We've been through so much, Ethan said, reflecting on their ordeal. I'm just glad it's over, Mia said, her eyes weary but hopeful. As they settled into their rooms, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there. Do you think the mansion's influence is truly gone? Mia asked, her voice filled with concern. I hope so, Ethan said, but his tone was cautious. They decided to rest and prepare for any further challenges that might arise. The night passed quietly, and the next morning they set out to explore the town. The town was filled with interesting shops and friendly faces, a stark contrast to the haunted mansion. It's nice to see people smiling again, Mia said, taking in the lively atmosphere. As they walked through the town, they noticed a small shop selling antiques and curiosities. Let's check that out, Ethan suggested, intrigued by the shop's mysterious aura. Inside, the shop was filled with strange artifacts and oddities, each with its own history. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with a twinkle in his eye, greeted them warmly. Looking for something special? The shopkeeper asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Just exploring, Ethan said, his eyes scanning the shelves. The shopkeeper led them to a section of the shop filled with ancient books and scrolls. These are rare and powerful, the shopkeeper said, indicating the collection. Ethan picked up an old, leather-bound book, its cover embossed with strange symbols. What's this one? Ethan asked, flipping through the pages. The shopkeeper's eyes widened as he saw the book. That's a very special book, he said, his tone serious. It's said to contain ancient knowledge and powerful secrets, the shopkeeper explained. Could it help us understand what we faced? Mia asked, her interest piqued. It might, the shopkeeper said, nodding. Ethan and Mia exchanged glances, knowing that their journey was far from over and that the book might hold the answers they needed. Ethan and Mia left the shop with the ancient book in hand, their minds buzzing with anticipation. This could be the key to understanding everything, Mia said, her voice filled with excitement. They found a quiet corner in the inn to study the book, eager to uncover its secrets. The book's cover was adorned with intricate symbols, its pages yellowed with age. Ethan carefully opened the book, revealing text written in an old, almost unreadable script. This might be in an ancient language, Mia said, examining the strange symbols. We need to translate this, Ethan said, flipping through the pages. They spent hours trying to decipher the text, using their knowledge from their previous encounters. As they worked, the inn's peaceful ambience was interrupted by an unexpected knock at the door. Who could that be? Ethan wondered, getting up to answer it. At the door stood a young woman with a worried expression, holding a letter. "I was told to deliver this to you," she said, handing over the letter. Ethan took the letter and read it aloud. "Help us, the darkness is spreading." "What does this mean?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with concern. "It sounds like someone else is in trouble," Ethan said, looking at the letter. The letter was unsigned, adding to the mystery of its origin. "We need to find out more about this darkness," Mia said, determined. They decided to investigate the letter, hoping it would lead them to answers. Following the instructions in the letter, they traveled to a small village on the outskirts of town. The village was quiet, its streets empty and silent. "This place feels eerie," Ethan said, his senses on high alert. They approached a small cottage, the source of the letter's request for help. The cottage door was slightly ajar, and they could hear muffled voices inside. Ethan and Mia entered cautiously, finding an elderly man and woman huddled together. "Are you the ones who sent the letter?" Ethan asked. The elderly man looked up with a worried expression. "Yes, we need your help." "What's happening here?" Mia asked, her eyes scanning the room. "A darkness has fallen over our village," the elderly woman said, her voice trembling. "It started with strange occurrences, disappearances, shadows moving on their own," the man explained. "It's just like what we faced in Elder Grove," Mia said, her face pale. "We believe it's connected to the same curse," the woman said. "Do you have any idea where the source might be?" Ethan asked, trying to piece things together. The elderly man handed them an old map of the village, marked with strange symbols. "This is where we believe the darkness is coming from," he said, pointing to a location in the woods. "We'll investigate," Ethan said, taking the map and nodding in determination. They left the cottage and followed the map, making their way into the surrounding woods. The woods were dense, with shadows creeping through the trees and an ominous stillness in the air. "This place gives me the creeps," Mia said, clutching her coat tighter. They followed the path indicated on the map, their footsteps crunching on the leaves. As they ventured deeper, the air grew colder and the shadows seemed to lengthen. They reached a clearing where an old, abandoned chapel stood, its structure decaying and overgrown. "This must be it," Ethan said, looking at the chapel with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The chapel's doors were creaky and weathered, but they pushed them open and stepped inside. The interior was dark and musty, with broken pews and shattered stained glass windows. "This place is definitely creepy," Mia said, her voice echoing in the vast space. They noticed strange symbols etched into the floor and walls, similar to those in the book. "These symbols match the ones in the book," Ethan said, examining the markings closely. As they explored, they found an old altar in the center of the chapel, covered in dust and cobwebs. "Look at this," Mia said, pointing to an inscription on the altar. The inscription was in the same ancient script as the book, but it appeared to be a warning. "We need to figure out what this says," Ethan said, taking out the book. They compared the inscription with the book's text, trying to decipher the meaning. "It looks like a ritual or incantation," Mia said, her eyes widening. "It might be connected to the source of the darkness," Ethan agreed. They worked together to translate the inscription, revealing a series of ancient instructions. "It's a summoning ritual," Mia said, her voice filled with dread. "And it looks like it's meant to bring forth a powerful entity," Ethan said, his face grim. We need to stop this ritual before it's too late, Mia said, her determination unwavering. They searched the chapel for any clues on how to disrupt the ritual. In a hidden compartment beneath the altar, they found a collection of ritualistic items and a strange amulet. This amulet might be important, Ethan said, examining the amulet closely. The amulet was adorned with the same symbols as the ones they had encountered. It could be a key to stopping the ritual, Mia said, her eyes hopeful. As they prepared to leave the chapel, they heard a low, rumbling sound emanating from beneath the floor. Something's happening, Ethan said, his voice tense. The floor of the chapel began to tremble, and the shadows around them grew darker. We need to hurry, Mia said, grabbing the amulet and leading the way. They raced back through the woods, the darkness seeming to follow them. The clearing and chapel behind them were now engulfed in swirling shadows and a menacing aura. They reached the village, only to find it even more deserted and silent than before. It's spreading, Ethan said, panic evident in his voice. They ran back to the elderly couple's cottage, hoping to find some answers or assistance. The cottage was quiet, but the elderly couple was waiting anxiously. We found the source of the darkness, Ethan said, holding up the amulet. But it's getting worse, Mia added, her face pale. The elderly couple looked at the amulet with concern and recognition. That amulet is part of the ritual, the elderly man said, his voice trembling. You must use it to reverse the ritual, the woman explained. How do we do that? Ethan asked, desperation in his voice. The amulet must be placed at the center of the chapel, the woman said. It will neutralize the dark energy and hopefully end the curse, she added. We'll go back and do it, Mia said, determination in her voice. Ethan and Mia made their way back to the chapel, the village's silent, darkened state weighing heavily on them. The woods seemed darker and more foreboding as they approached the clearing. The chapel's entrance was now blocked by thick, swirling shadows. We have to get through, Ethan said, gripping the amulet tightly. Mia braced herself and pushed forward, forcing their way through the dark barrier. They entered the chapel, which was now completely engulfed in shadows and a chaotic, pulsating energy. We have to place the amulet on the altar, Mia said, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. They made their way to the altar, the amulet glowing faintly in Ethan's hand. As they approached, the shadows seemed to react violently, swirling and contorting around them. It's like it's fighting back, Ethan said, struggling to keep his footing. With one final effort, they placed the amulet on the altar. The amulet emitted a bright, purifying light, and the shadows began to retreat. The chapel shook violently, but the darkness started to dissipate, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The light from the amulet grew brighter, and the shadows were pushed back into the ground. With a final, blinding flash, the darkness was banished, and the chapel fell silent. Ethan and Mia stood there, exhausted but relieved, as the chapel began to return to its normal state. The village's curse seemed to lift, the once empty streets now showing signs of life. We did it. Ethan and Mia continued their journey with the mysterious amulet, their path leading them through untamed forests and winding roads. The further they traveled, the more they noticed signs of other disturbances, strange phenomena and eerie sightings in the periphery. It seems like the darkness is still lingering, Mia observed, her gaze focused on the shadows shifting in the trees. Maybe the amulet isn't enough to fully contain it, Ethan said, his expression thoughtful. They arrived at a small, remote village that seemed untouched by the darkness. The villagers greeted them warmly, their cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the ominous aura they had been encountering. We need information about any recent disturbances, Ethan said, addressing the village elder. The elder, a wise woman with a kind face, invited them to her home and listened intently. There have been rumors of a dark entity causing chaos in nearby lands, she said, her eyes reflecting concern. We've encountered similar disturbances, Mia said, showing the elder the amulet. The elder examined the amulet closely, her expression becoming grave. This amulet is a powerful artifact, she said, her voice serious. But its power can be unstable if not properly managed, she added, warning them of its potential dangers. We need to find a way to stabilize it, Ethan said, hoping to prevent further problems. The elder suggested seeking out a reclusive scholar who lived deep within the mountains. He's an expert in ancient artifacts and may have the knowledge you need, she said. Ethan and Mia thanked the elder and set out towards the mountains, guided by the directions given. The journey was arduous, with steep climbs and treacherous paths that tested their endurance. These mountains are more challenging than I anticipated, Mia said, panting as they trudged upwards. We're getting closer, Ethan encouraged, glancing at the map. After days of travel, they finally reached the scholar's secluded cabin, perched on a cliffside. The cabin was surrounded by a garden of rare and exotic plants, their colors vibrant against the snowy backdrop. They knocked on the door, which was answered by a tall, gaunt man with piercing eyes. I'm Professor Armitage, the scholar said, inviting them inside with a nod. The interior of the cabin was filled with ancient texts, magical artifacts, and curious contraptions. We need your help with this amulet, Ethan said, showing it to the professor. Professor Armitage took the amulet and examined it carefully, his eyes narrowing in concentration. This is indeed a significant artifact, he said, his tone impressed. But it's not just a relic, it's a conduit for a powerful force, he added, his expression serious. What can we do to stabilize it? Mia asked, hoping for a solution. The professor consulted a large, dusty tome, flipping through its pages with practiced ease. We must perform a ritual to align the amulet's power with its intended purpose, he explained. But this ritual requires rare ingredients and precise timing, he warned. What ingredients do we need? Ethan asked, ready to gather whatever was necessary. The professor listed several rare components, including enchanted herbs and ancient minerals. These items are difficult to find, but I have a list of their locations, he said, handing them a parchment. We'll get them, Mia said, determined to complete the task. The professor provided them with directions and advice on where to find the rare ingredients. Ethan and Mia embarked on a new quest, traveling to mystical locations and ancient sites. Their first destination was a hidden grove known for its enchanted herbs. The grove was a beautiful, otherworldly place, with glowing plants and a serene atmosphere. This place feels magical, Mia said, her eyes wide with wonder. They carefully collected the herbs, mindful of their delicate nature. Their next destination was a mountain cave rumored to contain ancient minerals. The cave was dark and treacherous, with narrow passages and steep drops. Watch your step, Ethan cautioned, leading the way with a lantern. They navigated through the cave and found the minerals embedded in the walls. As they collected the minerals, they heard strange noises echoing through the cave. We're not alone, Mia whispered, her senses alert. They turned to see shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, their forms menacing and unfamiliar. We need to leave now, Ethan said, grabbing the collected minerals. They hurried out of the cave, the shadows following closely behind. Once they were safely outside, they made their way to the next location on their list, an ancient ruin. The ruins were overgrown with vines and appeared to be in a state of decay. This place looks like it's been abandoned for centuries, Mia said, her voice echoing in the emptiness. They searched the ruins and found the final ingredients hidden within a long-forgotten chamber. With all the components gathered, they returned to Professor Armitage's cabin. The professor prepared for the ritual, setting up the necessary artifacts and creating a protective circle. "This ritual will require focus and precision," he said, his voice steady and calm. Ethan and Mia watched as the professor performed the intricate steps of the ritual. The amulet was placed in the center of the circle, and the professor chanted ancient incantations. The ingredients were added one by one, and the air filled with a shimmering, ethereal light. The amulet began to glow, its energy stabilizing and aligning with the intended purpose. "The ritual is working," the professor said, observing the changes with satisfaction. The shadows that had once plagued them seemed to retreat as the amulet's power was restored. "We've done it," Mia said, her voice filled with relief and exhaustion. The professor nodded, his face showing a mixture of pride and weariness. "The amulet is now stabilized," he confirmed, handing it back to them. "It should help in containing the darkness from now on," he added. Ethan and Mia thanked the professor for his assistance and prepared to leave. As they departed, the mountains seemed less foreboding, and the path ahead felt clearer. Their journey took them through various landscapes, each one more serene and promising than the last. "We're making progress," Ethan said, feeling a sense of accomplishment. They reached a coastal town, its harbor bustling with activity and life. The town offered a sense of normalcy, a stark contrast to the eerie encounters they had faced. "It's good to see people going about their lives," Mia said, her spirits lifted. They took some time to rest and regroup, knowing that their quest was far from over. As they walked along the harbor, they encountered a sailor who mentioned strange occurrences at sea. "Ships disappearing and mysterious lights in the water," the sailor said, his tone filled with apprehension. "That sounds like another manifestation of the darkness," Ethan said, his expression thoughtful. The sailor provided them with information about the areas where the disturbances were most frequent. "We'll investigate these reports," Mia said, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. They prepared for their journey by gathering supplies and securing passage on a ship. The ship set sail, and they ventured into the open sea, the vast expanse before them. As they sailed, they kept an eye out for any signs of the mysterious lights or disturbances. The ocean was calm, but the sense of unease remained, a reminder of the darkness they were trying to contain. "We'll need to stay vigilant," Ethan said, scanning the horizon. Night fell, and the sea grew quiet, the stars reflecting off the calm waters. Suddenly, a faint, eerie glow appeared on the water's surface. "There's something out there," Mia said, pointing to the light. They approached the glow, their hearts racing with anticipation. As they got closer, they saw a ghostly ship floating on the water, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly light. "This must be connected to the disturbances," Ethan said, his voice tense. The ghostly ship seemed to beckon them, its presence both alluring and foreboding. They boarded the ship cautiously, finding it abandoned but filled with strange artifacts and symbols. "This ship is like a floating relic," Mia said, examining the objects. The artifacts seemed to resonate with the energy of the amulet, confirming their connection to the darkness. "We need to investigate further," Ethan said, feeling a growing urgency. Ethan and Mia explored the ghostly ship, their senses heightened by the mysterious aura surrounding them. The ship's decks were cluttered with ancient navigational charts and eerie relics that seemed to hum with dark energy. "These symbols match those we've seen before," Mia said, examining a map covered in similar markings. "It's as if this ship was part of a larger scheme," Ethan mused, piecing together the connections. They discovered a journal in the captain's quarters, its pages filled with cryptic notes and sketches. "This journal might hold the key to understanding what happened here," Mia said, flipping through the pages. The journal detailed strange voyages and encounters with supernatural entities that plagued the ship's crew. It looks like they were trying to control or summon something, Ethan said, his concern growing. The last entry was a desperate plea for help, mentioning an impending ritual meant to summon an ancient evil. We need to stop this ritual from completing, Mia said, feeling the weight of their task. They examined the ship for any signs of ongoing rituals or dark artifacts that could be involved. Among the artifacts, they found a ceremonial dagger with dark inscriptions, radiating an unsettling energy. This must be a key component of the ritual, Ethan said, holding the dagger carefully. They searched the ship's hold and found a hidden chamber filled with occult items and ritualistic paraphernalia. This looks like where the ritual would have taken place, Mia said, studying the arrangements. The chamber had an altar with markings similar to those they had encountered before. If this is the source of the disturbances, we need to neutralize it, Ethan said, his resolve firm. They began to dismantle the ritual setup, carefully removing items and disrupting the dark energy. As they worked, they heard the sound of approaching footsteps, echoing through the ship's corridors. "We're not alone," Mia whispered, her eyes scanning the shadows. The ghostly figures of the ship's crew began to materialize, their forms translucent and menacing. "We have to finish this quickly," Ethan said, bracing for confrontation. The spectral crew moved towards them, their expressions twisted in anger and desperation. Ethan and Mia defended themselves with the amulet's power, creating barriers of light to ward off the spirits. Despite their efforts, the spirits continued to advance, their wails echoing through the ship. "We need to complete the disruption ritual," Mia said, focusing on the ceremonial items. They used the amulet to channel energy into the ceremonial dagger, attempting to neutralize its dark power. The spirits seemed to react violently, their forms becoming more distorted and agitated. Ethan and Mia fought through the chaos, their determination unwavering. With a final surge of energy, they completed the ritual disruption, causing the spirits to wail and retreat. The ship began to shake violently, and the eerie glow that surrounded it started to fade. "We need to get out of here," Ethan said, as the ship's ghostly remnants dissipated. They made their way back to their boat, navigating through the turbulent waters as the ghostly ship sank into the depths. As dawn approached, the sea calmed, and the first light of morning broke through the darkness. Ethan and Mia returned to the coastal town, their faces etched with exhaustion but relief. "We've dealt with the source of the disturbances," Mia said, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The townspeople welcomed them back, their gratitude evident in their warm smiles and cheers. "We couldn't have done it without your help," Ethan said, addressing the gathered crowd. The sailor, who had mentioned the disturbances, thanked them personally, relieved to see the ghostly presence gone. "You've saved us from a great threat," the sailor said, shaking their hands. The town celebrated their return with a feast, offering food and drink to the weary adventurers. As they enjoyed the festivities, they reflected on their journey and the trials they had faced. "We've learned a lot from this adventure," Mia said, raising a toast to their success. "But there's still more to uncover," Ethan said, his gaze thoughtful. They discussed their next steps, considering the broader implications of the darkness they had encountered. "We need to understand why this darkness keeps appearing," Mia said, her curiosity piqued. "And how to prevent it from spreading further," Ethan agreed, determined to continue their quest. Their thoughts turned to the mysterious force behind the darkness and its origins. "We should seek out other experts and historians who might know more," Mia suggested. They decided to travel to renowned libraries and ancient archives in search of more information. Their journey took them to grand cities and ancient ruins, each one revealing more about the dark forces they faced. They encountered scholars, mystics, and historians, each adding pieces to the puzzle of the darkness. Their research led them to ancient texts that described a powerful entity known as the Shadow King. The Shadow King is said to be a primordial force of darkness, Ethan said, reading from an ancient manuscript, and it's been seeking to regain its full power through various rituals and disturbances. If the Shadow King is behind this, we need to find a way to counteract its influence, Mia said, her voice resolute. They uncovered information about a potential countermeasure, a legendary artifact known as the Lightbringer. The Lightbringer is said to be the antithesis of the Shadow King's power, Ethan said, excited by the discovery. The artifact was rumored to be hidden in a forgotten temple, deep within an enchanted forest. They set out on a new quest to find the Lightbringer, guided by the clues they had gathered. The enchanted forest was dense and magical, with strange flora and ethereal creatures. This place feels alive with magic, Mia said, her eyes wide with wonder. They followed the clues and navigated through the forest, overcoming mystical challenges and traps. The forest led them to the forgotten temple, its entrance obscured by ancient vines and enchantments. This must be it, Ethan said, pushing aside the overgrown foliage. The temple was a marvel of ancient architecture, adorned with intricate carvings and glowing runes. They entered the temple, its interior illuminated by a soft, otherworldly light. The temple's halls were filled with trials and puzzles designed to test their resolve and wisdom. We need to solve these puzzles to reach the artifact, Mia said, examining the challenges. They worked together to decipher the clues and overcome each trial, their teamwork proving essential. After a series of trials, they reached the inner sanctum of the temple. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it rested the Lightbringer, a radiant, golden artifact. "We've found it," Ethan said, or evident in his voice. The Lightbringer emitted a powerful, warm light, its presence filling them with hope and strength. As they took the artifact, the temple seemed to come alive with a vibrant energy. "We need to use this to confront the Shadow King," Mia said, holding the Lightbringer carefully. They returned to their journey, now armed with the Lightbringer and a renewed sense of purpose. Their next destination was a mystical realm, where the Shadow King was rumored to dwell. The realm was shrouded in darkness and mist, with ominous landscapes and shifting shadows. "This place feels heavy with dark energy," Ethan said, his voice tense. They navigated through the realm, their path illuminated by the Lightbringer's radiance. The Shadow King's presence grew stronger, and they could feel the darkness closing in around them. Finally, they reached the Shadow King's lair, a towering fortress of shadows and despair. "We need to confront the Shadow King and end this darkness once and for all," Mia said, steeling herself. They entered the fortress, its interior a labyrinth of dark corridors and shifting shadows. The Shadow King appeared before them, a towering figure cloaked in darkness. "You dare challenge me?" the Shadow King's voice echoed, filled with menace. Ethan and Mia held up the Lightbringer, its light piercing through the darkness. "We're here to end your reign of terror," Ethan declared, his voice firm. The Shadow King roared, summoning waves of darkness to assault them. They fought back with the Lightbringer's power, creating barriers of light and dispelling the darkness. The battle was intense, with the Shadow King's dark energy clashing against the artifact's radiance. As the fight progressed, they managed to weaken the Shadow King's power. Ethan and Mia's victory over the Shadow King had restored balance to the mystical realm, but the world beyond still held its secrets. They returned to the coastal town, where life had resumed its normal pace, the shadow of the past adventure lingering in their minds. Now that we've restored balance, what's our next step? Mia asked, glancing at the horizon. We should return to the archives and explore other ancient texts, Ethan suggested, eager to continue their quest for knowledge. Their journey took them to a grand library known for its collection of mystical and historical manuscripts. The library was a vast maze of bookshelves and ancient tomes, a treasure trove of lost knowledge. This place is incredible, Mia said, her eyes wide with amazement as they stepped inside. They met with a librarian who specialized in rare artifacts and ancient spells. We're looking for any information on other dark forces or ancient entities, Ethan explained. The librarian directed them to a section filled with texts on primordial beings and forgotten legends. They spent hours poring over manuscripts and scrolls, each one revealing fragments of forgotten lore. We've uncovered references to other ancient entities, Mia said, her excitement growing. One text spoke of an entity known as the Wraith Lord, a being of immense power and malevolence. The Wraith Lord could be another threat we need to address, Ethan said, considering the implications. The texts mentioned a hidden temple where the Wraith Lord was said to have been imprisoned long ago. We should investigate this temple, Mia suggested, her curiosity piqued. They prepared for another journey, gathering supplies and researching the temple's location. The temple was rumored to be located in a remote desert, far from the bustling cities they had visited. They traveled to the desert, where the scorching heat and endless dunes made their journey arduous. The desert is harsh, but we'll manage, Ethan said, bracing against the sun's intensity. They followed the clues from the texts, navigating through the desert's vast expanse. After days of travel, they arrived at the entrance of an ancient, weathered temple partially buried in the sands. This must be the place, Mia said, surveying the ancient structure with awe. The temple was covered in intricate carvings and inscriptions, its entrance guarded by ancient statues. They carefully entered the temple, the cool air inside a welcome relief from the desert heat. The interior was a labyrinth of stone corridors and hidden chambers. We need to find the central chamber, Ethan said, consulting the maps they had. They encountered various traps and puzzles, each one more complex than the last. These trials are meant to test our resolve, Mia said, solving another puzzle with determination. After navigating through the temple, they reached the central chamber, where an ornate sarcophagus lay. This must be where the Wraith Lord was imprisoned, Ethan said, examining the sarcophagus. The sarcophagus was adorned with protective runes and ancient seals. We need to be careful, Mia warned, sensing the dark energy emanating from the sarcophagus. They carefully opened the sarcophagus, revealing a dark, swirling mist inside. The Wraith Lord's essence is still trapped here, Ethan said, his voice tense. The mist began to coalesce into a shadowy figure, its presence malevolent and powerful. We need to seal it again, Mia said, preparing to use the Lightbringer. They used a Lightbringer to create a barrier of light around the Wraith Lord's essence. The Wraith Lord struggled against the barrier, its form shifting and writhing in anger. We need to reinforce the seals, Ethan said, focusing on the ancient runes. They worked together to strengthen the protective seals, using both the Lightbringer and their knowledge of ancient magic. The Wraith Lord's form began to wane, its power diminishing as the seals took effect. With a final surge of energy, they sealed the Wraith Lord's essence back into the sarcophagus. We've contained it once more, Mia said, breathing a sigh of relief. They left the temple, the desert sun setting behind them as they made their way back to the coastal town. We've done a great service, Ethan said, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The town welcomed them back with gratitude, the people relieved and hopeful. Your bravery has once again saved us from a great threat, the townspeople said, celebrating their return. Ethan and Mia took some time to rest and recover, their journey taking a toll on them. As they relaxed, they received word of strange occurrences in another part of the world. There are reports of magical anomalies and disturbances, Mia said, reviewing the information. We should investigate these new reports, Ethan said, eager to continue their quest. They prepared for another journey, knowing that their adventures were far from over. Their next destination was a remote island known for its mystical properties and ancient ruins. The island was surrounded by treacherous waters and mysterious fogs. They arrived on the island and began their exploration, searching for clues about the magical anomalies. The island's landscape was diverse, with lush forests, rocky cliffs, and hidden caves. They encountered strange creatures and encountered magical phenomena as they explored. This island is teeming with magical energy, Ethan said, feeling the aura around them. They discovered an ancient ruin deep within the forest, its entrance guarded by powerful enchantments. This ruin might be connected to the disturbances, Mia said, examining the enchantments. They used their knowledge and artifacts to bypass the enchantments and enter the ruin. Inside, they found a series of inscriptions and symbols detailing a powerful magical ritual. This ritual could be responsible for the anomalies, Ethan said, analyzing the inscriptions. The inscriptions described a ceremony meant to harness and amplify magical energies. We need to find out who is performing this ritual and why, Mia said, her concern growing. They followed the clues within the ruin, leading them to a hidden chamber. The chamber was filled with magical artifacts and a large ritual circle. It looks like someone has been conducting rituals here, Ethan said, surveying the setup. They found evidence of recent activity, including enchanted scrolls and magical components. We're getting closer to uncovering the source of the disturbances, Mia said. They continued their investigation, uncovering a network of magical anomalies linked to the rituals. These anomalies are creating ripples in the magical fabric of the world, Ethan explained. They discovered that the rituals were being conducted by a secretive group seeking to gain control over magical energies. We need to stop them before they cause irreparable damage, Mia said, feeling a sense of urgency. They traced the group's activities to a hidden enclave on the island. The enclave was a secluded and heavily guarded area, concealed by powerful enchantments. We'll need to be cautious, Ethan said, as they approached the enclave. They used stealth and their magical knowledge to infiltrate the enclave. Inside, they found the group conducting a large-scale ritual, their intentions clear. We need to disrupt the ritual before it's completed, Mia said, preparing to act. They used a lightbringer and other magical artifacts to intervene, creating barriers and disrupting the ritual. The group's leader, a formidable sorcerer, confronted them, his power formidable. You're too late, the sorcerer said, his voice echoing with dark energy. Ethan and Mia fought against the sorcerer, their magical artifacts clashing with his dark spells. The battle was intense, with powerful magic and energy colliding. With a final, concentrated effort, they managed to disrupt the sorcerer's ritual and neutralize his power. The enclave's enchantments began to unravel, and the magical anomalies started to stabilize. We've stopped the ritual and restored balance, Ethan said, as the sorcerer was defeated. The island began to return to its natural state, the magical disturbances fading away. They left the island, feeling a sense of accomplishment and relief. Their journey had uncovered and resolved yet another threat to the magical world. They returned to the coastal town, their efforts once again celebrated by the grateful townspeople. You've done it again, the townspeople said, honoring their bravery and success. Ethan and Mia took time to reflect on their journey and the challenges they had faced. Our adventures have taught us so much, Mia said, looking back on their experiences. Ethan and Mia returned from the island, their spirits high but their minds full of new challenges and questions. The coastal town had become their base of operations, a place where they could plan and rest between adventures. We've dealt with several dark forces, but I feel like there's more to uncover, Mia said as they reviewed their notes. The town's library offered additional resources, filled with magical texts and historical records. They discovered a reference to an ancient prophecy about a cosmic alignment that could awaken other primordial beings. This prophecy suggests a significant event is approaching, Ethan said, his interest piqued. According to the prophecy, a celestial alignment would soon occur, amplifying magical energies around the world. If this alignment happens, it could awaken even more dangerous entities, Mia said, her concern growing. They began researching ways to prevent or mitigate the potential threats associated with the alignment. The prophecy mentioned a hidden sanctuary where ancient sages once guarded against such cosmic events. We need to find this sanctuary, Ethan said, determined to prevent any disasters. The sanctuary was said to be located in a remote mountain range, known for its treacherous terrain and magical anomalies. They set out on a journey to the mountains, prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. The journey was arduous, with harsh weather conditions and dangerous wildlife. The mountains are more challenging than we anticipated, Mia said, struggling against the cold winds. They encountered magical barriers and enchantments protecting the sanctuary's location. These barriers are ancient and powerful, Ethan said, analyzing the enchantments. Using their combined knowledge and artifacts, they managed to bypass the barriers and enter the sanctuary. The sanctuary was a breathtaking place with mystical landscapes and ancient structures preserved through time. This place is incredible, Mia said, taking in the serene beauty and magical aura. They explored the sanctuary, discovering ancient texts and artifacts related to the prophecy. One text described a powerful relic known as the star crystal, which could help control the celestial alignment's effects. The star crystal could be our key to mitigating the cosmic threats, Ethan said, excited by the discovery. The text also describes the star crystal's location, an ancient temple hidden deep within the mountains. We need to find this temple, Mia said, determined to secure the relic. They followed the clues from the texts, navigating through the sanctuary's mystical environments. The journey led them to the entrance of the hidden temple, its ancient architecture awe-inspiring. The temple was adorned with celestial symbols and runes, its interior bathed in an ethereal light. This temple is beautifully crafted, Ethan said, admiring the intricate designs. Inside, they found a series of trials designed to test their wisdom and courage. These trials will test everything we've learned, Mia said, preparing for the challenges ahead. The trials involved solving complex puzzles and overcoming magical obstacles. They worked together, using their knowledge and artifacts to overcome each trial successfully. After completing the trials, they reached the inner chamber where the star crystal was kept. The crystal was housed in a pedestal, glowing with a brilliant, otherworldly light. "We've found it," Ethan said, carefully approaching the pedestal. The star crystal radiated a powerful energy, its light calming and reassuring. "This crystal will help us balance the cosmic energies," Mia said, taking the crystal into their care. As they prepared to leave the temple, they noticed a hidden chamber with additional texts and artifacts. "This chamber might hold more secrets about the celestial alignment," Ethan said, exploring the area. They discovered ancient scrolls detailing rituals and spells related to celestial events. "These scrolls will be invaluable for our preparations," Mia said, adding them to their collection. They returned to the sanctuary, where they performed a ritual to harness the star crystal's energy. The ritual would help stabilize the magical energies during the cosmic alignment. We need to be ready for the alignment effects, Ethan said, preparing for the upcoming event. The celestial alignment began, and the skies were filled with dazzling lights and magical phenomena. The star crystal's power helped them manage the energies, creating a protective barrier around the town. The barrier is holding, Mia said, monitoring the magical field. They observed the alignment effects, ensuring that no dangerous entities were awakened. As the alignment reached its peak, the world was bathed in a stunning celestial display. The star crystal's energy ensured that the balance was maintained, preventing any catastrophic events. We've successfully managed the alignment, Ethan said, relieved and proud. The town celebrated their success, grateful for their protection during the celestial event. You've saved us once again, the townspeople said, honoring Ethan and Mia's efforts. Ethan and Mia took time to rest and recover, their work at the sanctuary complete. They reflected on their journey and the new knowledge they had gained. We've faced incredible challenges and learned so much, Mia said, looking back on their adventures. And there are still many mysteries left to uncover, Ethan agreed, his eyes shining with excitement. They continued their research, preparing for future adventures and challenges. Their journey had led them to new discoveries and deepened their understanding of the magical world. The town had become a hub for magical knowledge and exploration, thanks to their efforts. We've made a difference here, Mia said, appreciating the town's growth and prosperity. They received new reports of magical disturbances and ancient artifacts needing attention. Our work is far from over, Ethan said, ready for the next adventure. They planned their next journey, eager to explore new realms and uncover more secrets. Their bond grew stronger with each adventure, their trust and camaraderie unshakable. We make a great team, Mia said, grateful for Ethan's companionship and support. Indeed, and there's so much more out there, Ethan agreed, looking forward to future explorations. Their next destination was a mysterious island known for its ancient ruins and magical anomalies. The island was surrounded by treacherous waters and mystical fogs, adding to its allure. This place is bound to have its own secrets, Mia said, preparing for the journey. They embarked on their new adventure, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The island's landscape was diverse, with lush forests, rocky cliffs, and hidden caves. They encountered strange creatures and magical phenomena as they explored the island. This island is full of surprises, Ethan said, his excitement growing with each discovery. They found ancient ruins and mystical artifacts, each one revealing more about the island's history. These ruins are a treasure trove of knowledge, Mia said, examining the artifacts. They uncovered information about a powerful artifact known as the Eclipse Stone, rumored to control shadows and light. The Eclipse Stone could be a key to understanding more about magical balance, Ethan said. The artifact was said to be hidden within a labyrinthine cave system on the island. They navigated the caves, facing various magical traps and challenges. These traps are designed to protect the artifact, Mia said, carefully avoiding the dangers. They reached the heart of the cave system, where the Eclipse Stone was said to be located. The chamber was filled with shadowy figures and illusions, creating an eerie atmosphere. We need to focus and stay alert, Ethan said, as they advanced into the chamber. They found the Eclipse Stone resting on a pedestal, surrounded by swirling shadows. This must be it, Mia said, approaching the artifact with caution. The Eclipse Stone radiated a powerful energy, its light and shadows intertwining in a mesmerizing display. They carefully retrieved the Eclipse Stone, its power resonating with their own artifacts. This artifact will be invaluable for our studies, Ethan said, examining the eclipse stone. They left the caves, the island's magical disturbances calming as they departed. Back in the coastal town, they continued their research and preparation for future adventures. Their discoveries had deepened their understanding of magical balance and the forces at play. "We've learned so much and accomplished so much," Mia said, reflecting on their journey. "And there's still more to explore and understand," Ethan agreed, looking forward to new challenges. They planned their next steps, eager to continue their quest for knowledge and adventure. Their bond grew stronger with each challenge, their partnership a source of strength and inspiration. The world was full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and they were ready to face them. Ethan and Mia, after extensive investigation, discovered that the glowing orbs were a signal for an ancient ritual. The ritual aimed to awaken a forgotten entity that had been sealed away centuries ago. They traced the ritual to an underground chamber beneath the abandoned mansion. Inside, they found a dark figure, a rogue sorcerer attempting to complete the ritual. With quick thinking and combined magical prowess, Ethan and Mia disrupted the ritual and neutralized the sorcerer. The glowing orbs vanished and peace returned to the town. The townspeople celebrated their heroes, grateful for their protection. Ethan and Mia reflected on their adventure, knowing they had prevented a potential disaster. They were ready for whatever came next, their bond and skills stronger than ever.